Let Century Management Solutions get you to your next medical appointment. They specialize in non-emergency medical transportation, connecting patients to care, safety, reliability, and on time. Their advanced technology platform seamlessly coordinates patients, healthcare providers, insurers, and transportation partners all in one powerful network. With over 200 trusted transportation providers, they deliver scalable solutions backed by real-time tracking and complete transparency. Go to SENTRYMS.com.
The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Good morning. Welcome to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
Good morning, Dick Morris. It's not morning anymore, actually.
Yeah, well, we're 6 minutes late.
Good afternoon.
The war continues in the Middle East, the U.S.-Iranian war, but the economy is not paying any attention.
No.
It's having no effect at all on the economy. And Trump, with his increased oil production and with his determination in keeping the embargo going, is affecting the rest of the world, but not affecting the United States.
The economy added 172,000 new payroll jobs in May, the Bureau of Labor statistic reported, as business shrugged off the energy supply shock from the war with Iran. The unemployment rate remained at 4.3%. Forecasters had expected payroll job growth to slow to 85,000. Instead, it accelerated, and previous months' job gains were revised up. Dan North, the senior economist with Alliance Trade America, told the Washington Examiner that the report is a pretty strong indication that the labor market is healthier than economists had thought. He also pointed out strong reports in the preceding months where job growth was over 100,000. Not just beat expectation, but rock and roll, North said. I mean, 3 months in a row, it's been really impressive. Friday's report is likely to provide a shot in the arm for President Trump, who has been weighing down by historically how low consumer sentiment. The conflict with Iran and the halt of oil tankers through the strait darkened the economic picture over the course of May. So it doesn't seem that that's doing much damage to our guy.
Well, the amazing thing was that, if you recall, during the last year, the continuous focus, and McLaughlin, the pollster, was constantly telling me, the answer is to pass the Trump tax cuts now, so they'll take effect before the midterms.
You mean big, gigantic, beautiful thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said the big problem in the last cycle was that we didn't pass the tax cuts until the end. And the result was that the economy was not good going into the election. And the focus now was incredibly on passing the tax cut early, so it will take effect as before the election. And that's exactly what's happening. Because of the tax cut, because of the enormous economic growth that's stimulating, the war in Iran seems almost an afterthought and really does not appear to be doing much to affect the economy at all.
Well, and I really believe people realize that he's getting rid of this nuclear problem, and bomb. And even people that don't like him have to be saying, at least maybe my kids won't get blown up, type of thing.
And while that's going on, the American factory worker is experiencing an economic renaissance amid President Trump's policies to revise U.S. manufacturing. The average weekly paycheck for a non-supervisory durable goods factory worker, that's non-supervisory durable goods
should have been a sentence you gave to me,
is up 7.4%, according to data. Hourly pay is up 5.3%, and the average work week has expanded, particularly due to rising overtime. And that's without inflation. Pay growth continued in May. Hourly wages rose 0.4%, and weekly wages climbed 0.6%. Real durable goods output grew at an annualized rate of 5.8% for the first 3 months of the year. Productivity, the amount of goods produced for an hour of work, rose at a 5.5% annualized rate in the first quarter, and that's because Trump is giving a green light to AI technology and not hampering it. Although inflation is high, factory worker pay is rising significantly faster than prices. After adjusting for inflation using the April Consumer Price Index, the latest available, real weekly pay is up 3.5%, and hourly pay is up 1.5%. The last time real weekly wages were consistently this good was the post-war boom from 1947 to 1969.
Really?
Take-home pay gains are even stronger for many workers because Trump's big, beautiful bill cut taxes on overtime.
Now, really, 3%, it doesn't seem like a lot of money.
Oh, that's per month.
How does that, 3% is 3%. $1 is 3 cents.
Yeah, it's 3% year on year for the month, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, yeah, but look,
just going up alone is a positive that it's going up, not
going
down.
Up faster than inflation is enormous, enormously positive.
Great,
and it's causing the Democratic map of prospective victories to collapse. And this is, I guess, the key point. Apart from the economy, which gives you short-term indications as to what's going to happen in the midterms, from 20 to 25, 5-year period, Texas gained 2.56 million people. Florida gained 1.92 million. North Carolina gained 756,000. Georgia gained 589,000. Arizona, South Carolina, Texas, Utah, Washington State all grew substantially as well. So all those red states have grown significantly. Meantime, the old blue-collar pillars still finished underwater or badly lagged the red state boom. New York, over the 4-year period, lost more than 200,000 people. California, more than 200,000. Illinois, 100,000.
It's what they're losing. People
So
walking
Texas
away.
and Florida alone gained 5 million people.
Wow.
New York, California, and Illinois together lost 500,000 people. In other words, even after Biden's open borders flooded blue state sanctuary cities with masses of illegal immigrants, the map just kept on running south.
Yeah,
and
they are literally running
style
south.
Socialism to California, the wealth tax on the left just keeps pouring gasoline on the fire. So,
but Hochul called everyone and asked them to please come back.
Yeah, but look at this from a national point of view. The Democratic Party started out with a big advantage in the House of Representatives.
When?
At the very beginning of the country, because slaves were counted and then illegal immigrants are counted. And that gives the Democrats a big advantage going into it. Then that advantage began to fray away. The Supreme Court said that you may not count. Race in doing reapportionment.
This is recent, just this year. Yeah.
And now the population shift from the red states to the blue states from the blue states to the red states is enormous.
Right. But we don't see that yet. They didn't reapportion yet.
No, but we see the population data that will be based on. And when the reapportionment comes on in next year, the effect will be enormous. You're talking about millions of people moving from Democratic states to Republican states, and the effect will be huge in reapportionment. You combine that with not being able to overcount black people, that is not being able to reapportion based on race, which they now can't do. And you combine that with the underlying trend of the economy doing so well. Trump is in fabulous shape as we approach the midterms. And more importantly, the Republican Party has a permanent advantage. I think that after the reapportionment is finished, after the court decision is taken account, after we finish all the redistricting, The Republican edge over the Democrats will make the House permanently Republican. And that will mean that both houses will be Republican.
The Democrats are going to have to up their game to ever get back in the game, to get back in the game.
Well, if they can, yeah.
But let me ask you, I'm looking at that chart with New York lost 200,000. That's the whole state, but is it mostly New York City?
Oh, it's almost all New York City.
I would think, right.
No, but upstate lost too, because there was no fracking. And
right.
And
oh, yeah, right. So that, I think, if I remember correctly, they lost like 20,000 jobs.
Yeah, huge numbers of people.
Huge number, maybe 30.
For decades, Democrats have been protected by a map that inflated their strength. Racial gerrymandering spotted them dozens of deliberately non-competitive seats. Illegal immigration padded the population counts. And thus both House seats and electoral votes of the states of their own citizens are fleeing. On top of that, the 2020 census shorted red states and inflated blue ones. That's three huge systemic cheats that are all cracking all at once. And it gets even worse. As America moves south, west, and right, the 2030 census is going to be ugly for blue states.
Plus, Trumponomics is starting to come up, and that's starting to work out.
It's working so well. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, manufacturing expanded for fifth consecutive month. The ISM Manufacturing Index breached the magic 50 mark for the fifth straight month.
What's the magic 50 mark mean?
Signaling expansion. That's a measurement of how optimistic the factories are and their production orders are. And
50% better? Is that what that means?
No, 50 means it's average. And 54, the current level, means it's going up.
Got it. Okay.
Joe Biden drove a manufacturing offshore. Donald Trump is bringing it back. Put the Trumponomics policies of tough tariffs, pro-investment tax policy together, and the boardroom math changes overnight. This is how you rebuild an industrial base. You don't beg companies to come home like Hochul's doing. You change the economics so coming home becomes the rational decision.
That's the most important thing right there. You change the economics so coming home becomes the rational decision. It's the smart move.
Right.
That was so important, that one line.
So remember back last year, we were so focused on getting the Trump tax cuts passed and getting them passed early so that they would affect the midterm elections. And we succeeded in doing that. And you're now seeing the impact. Even with an oil embargo, even with the negatives of the gas price increase, you have tremendous economic growth and tremendous economic activity. It's kind of like gas prices are up, but who gives a damn? And the ability of the economy to continue to grow without hampering because of the tax cuts is enormous.
Well, I think it's important, the gasoline. People do care, but they see that that's going to go down. And
they see it's relatively minor compared to everything else.
And compared to everything else, we're going to be
and their wages are going up a hell of a lot faster than gas prices.
But not that as much as we're going to be in a safer world. And people really believe that.
Right.
That's the most important. I'll spend the extra $20 for a tank of gas more if I know I'm going to survive to drive that full tank of gas.
That
you know what I mean? The latest date from the BLS show is only 35% of teenagers are working or looking for a job, down from 50%. And moreover, the last 40 years, unbelievable. Summer jobs were once a staple of the teenage experience, but this season's teen hiring total is expected to hit its lowest levels in decades. Sure, why should you get a job? They sit home and play the thing and get free stuff. And, well, I don't care. I'm not going to go out and work. My father would have punched me in the back of the head if I didn't go out and get a paper out at 12 years old. Outplacement firm challenger, Gray and Christmas Projects teens will gain almost 800,000 jobs between May and July, the lowest summer hiring total for 16 to 19-year-olds since the Bureau of Labor Statistics began. Inflation and rising fuel costs are squeezing the same households and small business that they're not hiring kids to do their stuff and whatnot, you know. For comparison, the average since 2013 has been around 1.3 million, according to the Challenger, kids getting jobs
and
in the
that's as
summer.
opposed to about 800,000 now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. The labor force participate rate for people ages 16 to 19, the share of the population either employed or actively looking for work was 35%. Wow. In July of 25. That's in line with a decade ago, but down significantly from nearly 60% in the late 70s. This is not so great. In New York City, applications for why would they want to go to work, people in New York City? The application for the summer youth employment has topped last year's record of 200,000 people competing for 100,000 openings.
Yeah, but this isn't a sign of economic weakness.
No way.
This is a sign of people saying, screw it.
No, people's weakness.
Yeah.
Kids
This
being
is
weak.
kids deciding not to work.
Right, because they're lazy little
Not
bastards.
entering the labor force, exactly.
Right, and
the
get kicked
more
in the ass.
And the more
once
your
in a while.
benefits increase, the less likely the people are to work.
You hear Sebastian, the comedy guy? He's funny. The Italian last name, Manicalsco, something like that, right? He goes, everyone's out. They go after college. They go and they I got to find myself. I'm going to Europe. My father kicked me in the back. You find yourself. You're there. Look in the mirror. You see you? When I was 10 years old, my father says, get a job. What are you doing? Yeah, I was an altar boy.
Yeah. Well, it's changing. And it's changing because the basic economy is changing. Okay, Governor Hochul is giving us a tremendous present that Doug here really appreciates.
New York's Democratic governor signed legislation Wednesday authorizing authorities to make drivers with dangerous number of speeding violations install speed limiting devices. Listen, I got to be one of those, right, Dick? But I got to tell you, after we finish this, Democratic New York Hochul legislation will allow the pilot program to target so-called super speeders. I used to be speed racer, now I'm super speeder in New York City, with the potential to expand into other parts of the state. WABC reported, that's what we reported. Drivers with 16 or more speeding violations in 1 year period qualify for this designation and must install an intelligent speed assistant device in their vehicle. But listen, you used to get 6 points or 8 points on your license, and they just took your license away. So this is a little extra, you just took a drive. And I got another thing. Yeah, I got a lot of tickets, but you notice lately I do not get any. Number one, I don't drive as much. Plus, I'm careful. This isn't the worst thing in the world because a lot of crazy people out there speeding through the city, and we got to watch out we don't get killed. And it's going to slow people down. It's going to give them the ignition. I normally wouldn't like this.
When you combine this with the other stuff they're doing to New York City,
right,
it makes it very hard to live here.
Listen, we're going to take a break, and we'll come back and pick the story up.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
So just to add a little bit to that, I don't want to go over this whole thing. I get that part, but she's trying to have a power grab. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, well, she's doing stuff that the left approves of.
Yeah, right.
But I think that freeing people should be free to operate their own cars.
Well, all right, let's forget all of that. You think she has a shot of getting reelected? I do not.
Yeah, she's
you do?
more likely to win than lose.
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
Of course. New York is a Democratic state.
What's the percentage New York City to the state of voters? Half?
No, New York metropolitan area.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
It's about 70% of the voters.
70% of New York State.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And New York City is about 40%.
Doesn't matter. It's the whole. Yeah. Wow. Well, we got to hope that Blakeman
Yeah.
Suffolk County and all. That's his area, right? Suffolk County?
Yeah.
Right? So
The
listen,
House passes war powers resolution to cut in hostilities in Iran, weakening Trump's negotiating strategy. Now, this is a purely symbolic vote. It means absolutely nothing.
Right.
Trump says the War Powers Act is unconstitutional. Presidents, from the moment it was passed, have said it was unconstitutional, and that Trump has said, "I'm not going to abide by it." But nevertheless,
the vote is largely symbolic because even a war powers measure were to pass the Senate, President Trump would certainly veto it. But it deals with a real blow to the president's leverage to negotiate a peace deal with Iran. Sure, if his Senate and the people don't back him, the peace people, the people in Iran will say, yeah, you don't even want to do this. Mr. Trump has said the Iranians have brought up Democrats' repeated war powers vote. How do you feel, this is what I'm saying, how do you feel when you're negotiating, you're winning every point, and they say, but in Washington, they wanted to stop you from negotiating? He said last month, it's only political. It's the Democrats. They're dumb. They're stupid people. They're more. I added that. Those comments have not stopped the growing war powers momentum in Congress. The House Republicans who voted for the war powers resolution, and we remember these names on Wednesday, Thomas Massey, Kentucky, Tom Barrett of Michigan, Brian Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania, and Warren Davison of Ohio.
Yeah, but Massey voted that way because he got massacred in the election.
But just remember these
Trump
names when we
defeated him.
go. In the Senate, the GOP senators, Bill Cassidy
Who
of
we also
Louisiana,
defeated.
right? Oh, that's right. Just the other day, right? Sunday, whatever it was. Susan Collins, the creepy thing. Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, and Rand Paul, I'm surprised at that, helped Democrats.
So basically, as Trump defeats him, they vote against him in Congress. But that's understandable, and it's a matter of time until they're out of there.
Yeah, but they still don't care about the country because they're worried, oh, I was defeated, I'm a little baby.
More than worried about the country. They want to get even, and they want to show
About the
Trump.
rest of the country.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Anyway, so obviously anything that provides congressional support for the president's efforts to take on Hezbollah, Hamas, the threat they pose to the United States and ultimately Iran, it would be a positive, he said. But we haven't asked for it because we believe every operation that has been conducted is well within the law as it exists. And that's
Let's hear from Roxanne.
Yeah, let's get Roxana's on the phone. This is On the Rocks.
Hi,
right?
guys.
What happened today in history?
Well, to change the tone a little bit, the quote is, "The secret of happiness is freedom. The secret of freedom is courage." And that's a quote from 500 BC by an Athenian historian and general, I hope I pronounce his name right, Thucydides.
Thucydides.
Yes, exactly.
We knew Dick would know it.
On this day, there were two that I picked great historical moments. The first, today in 1776, appropriately, during the American Revolution, Richard Henry Lee presented what became known as the Lee Resolution, little known, to Congress in Philadelphia, setting the stage for the United States Declaration of Independence on July 4th, 1776.
The Lee Resolution said these colonies are and ought to be independent states. And that set the process rolling for independence.
Amazing.
Great. So we thank God for their foresight. And so here we are, preparing to celebrate 250 years of that independence. Another important event remembered is Normandy landings, known as D-Day, which is a military code, day of attack. In 1944, during World War II, Allied forces launched the largest seaborne invasion in history. The success of D-Day came at a tremendous cost with lives, yet the operation led to the liberation of Paris and ultimately the defeat of Hitler's regime. D-Day is remembered as a powerful example of courage, sacrifice, and international cooperation. But unbeknownst to many was the meeting of Roosevelt, Churchill, and Soviet leader Stalin. They met in Tehran in 1943. They coordinated military strategies with one common goal: to defeat Nazi Germany, planning Operation Overload, the invasion in Normandy, which took place after that meeting 6 months, 5 days exactly. We pray for this cooperation as President Trump negotiates to disarm Iran, and for basic humane treatment in that region that has overflowed in our own country and others with this Islamic jihadist radical extremism. One must revisit history to understand that peace obtained by a great leader comes with immense responsibility, expedient decisiveness, combined with moral courage. Our president, Donald Trump. As Americans, right now, our patriotism is an emotional bond, loving our country with pride, gratitude, and yes, personal sacrifices, as they were talking earlier with gas, etc. But we cannot afford this moment in history to be or do anything less. So blessings to all as we're going through these trying times.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Very nice, Roxanne.
Thank you, Roxanne.
You know,
Yes.
Dick, Normandy, I saw a great movie with Tom Selleck called Ike.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic. And it wasn't about, the visual wasn't the men storming the beaches. The whole premise of this thing, I took from it, was the way Ike thought about sending these men.
Yeah.
Because it was really an interesting movie. Ike.
There was always a fundamental division between Britain and the United States in the way we approached D-Day. Churchill had been sponsoring the invasion of Gallipoli in the Turkey, into the Crimea, during the First World War, which he saw as an end run around the stalemate on the Western Front. and the invasion was a total flop, a total failure. There had been inadequate coordination.
Right.
And he saw millions of dead bodies floating in the water as being the consequence of any invasion. And he did not want that to happen.
Because of that, because of, how do you say, Gallipoli? Gallipoli? Because of that. That's not what you're saying?
Yeah, and
he had that in the back of his mind.
He was saying Britain can't afford that. We've already had one generation wiped out. We can't afford another to be wiped out.
Yeah, that's tough.
Stalin kept saying the only way to end this war is a direct attack on Berlin. And the only way to do that is through France.
He's right.
So Churchill kept saying, no, let's go through North Africa. Let's go through Sicily. Let's go through Italy.
They would have kept it another year.
And Stalin said, you're just delaying.
Yeah, right.
And Churchill said, I'm not delaying. I'm rehearsing. I'm practicing. And ultimately, Eisenhower made the difference.
He was
with
the
Roosevelt.
Supreme Leader, right? He was Supreme Lord.
And made clear that we are going to go into North Africa and Sicily and Italy. And then we're going to go into France. And then we're not going to let anything delay us. The other point that lay behind that is that Churchill wanted to gain the advantage over Russia in the post-war era. He was afraid of communism. He looked forward to the Cold War. He saw that after this war was over, we'd be fighting a Cold War with Russia. And the issue was, where should we stop in the pursuit of Germany? Where should our troops join? Where should Stalin's forces and the West meet and shake hands? Churchill wanted it to be much closer to Poland, much closer to the east, because he said we need to preserve power in Europe. And the only way to do that is to have the bulk of Europe freed by the West, not by the Soviets. And Stalin was not having that and just charged directly ahead and ended up splitting Berlin and splitting Germany. But the fundamental distinction between the Allies, between Churchill's desire to preserve the British Empire and minimize casualties for Britain, and Roosevelt's desire to end the war as quickly as possible by directly conquering Germany and taking Berlin, split the Allies and was really the substance of the Tehran Conference.
Now, was Eisenhower as supreme leader, right? Does that mean what he says goes? Like, in other words, I'm doing Normandy. I'm going to go into Normandy, the beaches. That was it, even if they disagreed? Or how did that work?
Well, he was the supreme leader, but he served at the sufferance of Churchill and Roosevelt.
He did?
Yeah. And they could fire him anytime they wanted to.
Oh, really?
So it was really a joint operation.
Right. It was just a nice name.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, in that movie, and I suggest everyone watch, it was really a great movie for, it wasn't a war movie per se, it wasn't all about, the battles. He said something, and this is the writers, obviously, who knows if Eisenhower said it, but they got the gist of his feel. He went to see, he went to pilots that were going to take off the week before, a couple of days before. And he wanted to give them a little hello and a pep talk and whatever, right? And when he got back, and he was good friends with his driver, he always used to talk to him. The whole movie was a lot about that. And when he got back, and I don't know the real numbers and percentages, but let's say there were 30 pilots standing there, and he's shaking their hand, and thank you, sir, blah, blah, blah. He got in the thing, and his friend said, his driver said, what's up, Ike? And he goes, and whatever the percentage was that the bean counter said, only half are going to come back. He said, there's 30 guys there, there's 15 are coming back. I'm got a chill right now saying that. And I don't know if that's the exact verbatim what he said, was close to it. And that's how he was feeling. He goes, I just sent 15 guys to die just now. 30 are going, and only 15 are going to come back.
We had 10,000 deaths in Normandy of American troops, which was enormous.
10,000.
10,000 deaths.
But how many? Roxana said it. There was how many thousands stormed? 100,000.
150,000.
150,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
10,000, 150 died.
So less than 10%. I mean, one is too many, but still it was going to be
huge.
A huge number.
So let's go back to modern times.
Why?
It
This
turns
is good
out
history.
that
But thank you, Roxana, by the way.
Thank you, Rock. A majority of the people who claimed new Trump tax breaks this year earned less than $10,000. So the Democratic charges that this was a tax break for the rich, not for the middle class, are totally untrue. Half of those who got tax breaks, a majority, were under $100,000 a year.
And
among them, that's particularly important, is the no tax on tips.
Yep.
That affected 7.5 million taxpayers who claimed no tax on tips, and 9 of the 10 earning under $100,000. 29 million filers claimed the no tax on overtime deduction. 3/4 of those earned less than $100,000. 35 million seniors claimed the enhanced deductions for seniors over the age of 65, a provision meant to fulfill Trump's campaign promise to end taxes on Social Security. Of those, 2/3 earned less than $100,000. This analysis confirms President Trump's tax policies deliver substantial tax cuts to hardworking Americans and provide greater relief and financial certainty to low and middle-income households. It's worth noting that many of the new tax proposals were designed to largely benefit low and middle-income taxpayers. They have phased out taxes on income. And
Dick,
enormous information.
I hear that a lot of New Yorkers are not doing this. The tax on tip thing. I asked some people, and
that means that New York State is not incorporating the federal data.
I don't know this. I haven't looked into it to be positive about it, but by next week I'm going to look into it. That means New York State is not
means that New York
allowing
State is still taxing tips,
right?
But the federal government is not, and it means that because they can't do it unless the state agrees to it. Now, the federal tax deduction continues.
Right.
And you don't pay taxes on tips on your federal return.
Oh, okay.
But you do on your state return.
Mm. Anyway, when we get back, we're going to talk about the copycat candidate, Dan Sullivan. This is unbelievable. When we get back.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
All right, welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. Have you noticed how in the California mayor's race and the governor's race, as the days tick by after Election Day, the lead of the Republicans drops and the lead of the Democrats come back?
Yeah, why
That's
is
either
that?
because the Democrats are voting by mail and it takes a while to count it, or voter fraud. And we don't know the answer to that.
That's right.
But in federal elections, we will know now, because Trump has proposed and enforced a series of measures that really change that, particularly telling the post office that they can't deliver and can't be complicit in mail-in ballot fraud. And we have to see how that is enforced, but it shows the importance of it.
So you want to hear this? This is a funny story right here. Talk about copycat candidate. A closely watched U.S. Senate campaign in Alaska is stoking controversy after a candidate bearing the same name as one of the major candidates entered the race. This is unbelievable. As Republican incumbent in the race, Senator Dan Sullivan is engaged in one of the tightest campaigns for the upper chamber in the country, faces a formidable challenger in former Democrat Republican Mary Peltola. The recent entrance of another Dan Sullivan into the race has triggered accusations from the incumbent lawmaker, top Republican leadership, that Democrats plotted his candidacy to derail the senator's campaign. Wow. I think that any disruption in the political ecosystem right now was probably designed by Democrats to give their candidates an advantage, he added. The other Dan Sullivan, they're going to have to call him, announced his campaign for the Senate last week ahead of the August 18th open primary election. Like the incumbent lawmaker, the other Dan Sullivan is registered Republican, according to the Alaskan Division of Elections.
I had that situation happen to me.
Dick Morris?
In 1978, I was running the campaign for Bob Casey, who ultimately went on to become governor and senator and switched parties. He could switch parties. I switched parties. Anyway, back when I was a Democrat, I was working for Bob Casey in the campaign in a primary against a guy from Pittsburgh. And we were winning because we had done a good job as state treasurer. And then all of a sudden, another Bob Casey, Robert P.
I
Casey.
thought you said Dick Morris. Oh, Bob Casey.
Yeah, another Bob Casey entered the race.
Got it.
The Democrats who were opposing my Bob Casey had put up a biology teacher who spent no money on the campaign, simply the filing fee, had no background, nothing in politics. But they put him on the ballot so that he would draw votes for my Bob Casey.
Can you imagine?
And on Election Day, we lost the primary. And when you look at the precincts we lost, but the other Bob Casey, the phony one, had a huge vote in those precincts.
Well, the Dan Sullivan, he's threatening legal action on the other Dan Sullivan, saying the Democrat is trying to rig this thing. Do you know that Michael Keaton, who's a great actor also, Michael Keaton's name was Michael Douglas also, but he took his mother's maiden name because of Michael Douglas. Who cares about this, anybody? No, we do not. Let's get to the next story. Plattner, Senate Democrats heckled by protesters over Maine candidates, KKK guy. Democrats, it says KIK. You seeing that right there? That's supposed to be KKK, isn't it, Dick?
I don't know.
I don't either. I'm going to go with KKK. Democratic Senator candidate Graham Plattner was heckled Tuesday for sexual depravity and called a freak when he arrived at a meeting of Senate Democrats on Capitol Hill.
These are Democrats protesting against Plattner because they're afraid that he's going to lose the race to Collins, which he would. And they're calling on Plattner to pull out because they want another candidate. But they originally were backing Janet Mills, who was the governor of Maine. But she pulled out of the race. And nobody thought Plattner was going to be the candidate, but now it turns out he is going to be the candidate.
They're calling him Porta Potty Plattner.
Yeah. And people are having an absolute fit.
The lawmakers that met with Plattner were also heckled by protesters with a bullhorn who asked why Mr. Plattner KKK account isn't still alive. No, KIK account is still active. The protesters called him out by name: Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota, Adam Schiff, and Senator Edward Markey of Massachusetts. Plattner previously weathered backlash from the Nazi symbol tattoo on his chest, which he covered up after announcing his Senate run. He has also been blasted for several posts on his now deleted Reddit account that include topics such as sexual assault and military. Oh, this is horrible. He also mocked a Purple Heart recipient, calling the wounded soldier a dumb mother effer who didn't deserve to live. Oh, I hate this guy. He deemed all police officers bastards, agreed with posts calling rural white Mainers racist and stupid. Of course we are. And asked, why don't black people tip? Really? Senate Minority Leader Charles Schumer, Chucky, voiced support on Tuesday for Mr. Plattner. What's his poop in your thing, Plattner? But refused to address mounting controversy surrounding him. Really? Chucky likes the guy.
Well, he's forced to.
If Chucky likes him, he's no good.
He's forced to because he won the primary. And he's stuck with this guy, and they want him to drop dead and get out of the race. But he won't do them a favor. He won't die. And he is the Democratic candidate against Susan Collins, a seat the Democrats must pick up in order to win the Senate.
Right, but she's always voting for the left anyway, this woman.
She counts as a Republican, which is crucial.
Right. All right, so we'll go to break. We'll come back in a little bit.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. I just wanted to say about the climate change story, that the entire world, the economies of every major country, were totally impacted by this absolutely phony BS that the world was in the middle of climate change. And this climate change was a disaster. It was totally atypical of history, and that we had to face enormous changes. An entire generation, actually 2 generations of American kids, got brainwashed about the importance of climate change. And now it turns out that it was a hoax. And they're all admitting it was a hoax.
And, it was obvious if you really just common sense and you sit back. Sometimes you turn the sound off, you can see people lying, the way their body actions are.
I mean, where did we go to get our decades back?
We don't.
Britain basically is still working off climate change, and they forget that they have all this oil in the North Sea. The U.S. was dealing with its hands tied behind its back because we couldn't reduce the oil. We couldn't really let it happen. Entire neighborhoods, entire communities, entire states went into poverty because they couldn't produce oil.
I think
they couldn't produce because they produced fossil fuels. And when did this end? When this, it ends with a bang, not with a whimper, not with a bang. And we need to just understand that we were taken for a total ride, a total deceit, and it ended up screwing millions of people.
Dick, even still, once in a while, I'll get somebody, excuse me, that'll say, oh, no, you don't believe in climate change. It used to be global warming, right? You don't believe in climate change. What, there's something wrong with you? You got to believe it. And they go at me. And Those are people that just feel holier than thou, that they know so much more. Yeah. Their morals are so stronger than mine, and that's what that's about.
Well, they were taught that in school.
And well, no, even before that, even when we were growing up in whatever it was, the 80s, maybe the late 70s, the 80s, and you heard about this.
Yeah.
At first, like I said earlier, yeah, sure, okay, let me look into this. And then I realized this is a lot of bull. It's absolutely... And also, like I said earlier, right when Gore said, "Oh, global warming," then it became climate change. Like, well, they don't. How could you can't change that? Right. You can't have this on your mind and change it that quickly. All right, this is a good story. Mark Wayne Mullen refutes Delaney Hall detainee allegations that reports that there was health violations and whatnot. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen said that no health violations have been found in the Delaney Hall Immigration Detention Center in Newark, which has become the latest flashpoint of anti-ICE violations. Allegations of inhumane conditions include maggot-infested food, which made Delaney Hall a magnet for protesters. I call them
maggot.
Right. I call them the maggot protesters, who became increasingly violent. Oh, that's not inhumane for them to be increasingly violent. It's humane, whatever. But a Senate hearing Tuesday, when Democratic lawmakers pressed Mr. Mueller about the conditions, the secretary reported that Delaney Hall got a clean bill of health. In fact, just recently, the state of New Jersey's health inspectors went in. They didn't find one single violation. He added that a lot of claims were made, and they just absolutely were not true. The liars should be doxxed. These people should have their names out there.
Throw them out of the country.
At the hearing, Mr. Mullen also rejected reports of hunger strikes at the facility. I always love when people have hunger. Al Sharpton used to have hunger strikes. That's how he lost his weight. Have a hunger strike. Eat a carrot. So he said a handful of unauthorized immigrant detained at Delaney Hall refused to eat because they demanded ethnic food. That's why they talk about maggots in the food, because these people didn't want to eat that food because of their religion. They can't have pork. I would feed them bacon all day long. The demonstrations outside Delaney Hall, which have been a daily occurrence since late May, grew increasingly hostile, with protesters storming police. Oh, that's okay. And barricades, setting fires on the street and hurling glass bottles, rocks, and lumber and fireworks at police. So that's okay. That's not inhumane.
Whenever I see this story...
Get the frig out of here.
Whenever I see the story about these demonstrations, been going on for 2 weeks now, I am very thankful politically, because the biggest problem is, how do you keep attention to achievements you've already done? When you've deported 2 million people and thrown them out of the country and got another million who left voluntarily.
You're talking about them keeping attention or us?
How do we keep attention?
Right.
How do we tell our voters that? How do we get our voters to focus on this with the midterms coming up, with Iran's war waging? How do we get them to focus back attention on what we've already accomplished?
That's right here,
which was the enormous change in the in the economy. And how do we get them to focus on the throwing people out of the country? And the problem is, you don't. People pocket the achievement, they forget who did it, and it doesn't give you credit for it. But by continuing these demonstrations and by going completely crazy about them, they keep the issue front and center, and they keep it politically actionable. So as a politician, as a strategist, I am so thrilled that they're doing this.
And they're embarrassed. They're embarrassing people. They are embarrassing themselves in their protests. They talk about humane facility, and then you throw glass and bottles and things at cops. So what are you talking? Don't talk about being nice.
Thank goodness they're doing it. Because without these demonstrations, we might forget the enormous change that Trump is bringing about.
Oh, no, I like your idea about this.
You got to understand how huge this change is. It's going to affect congressional apportionment for the rest of the century. It's affected the crime rates in many, many cities. It's completely changed the budget forecasts and permitted tax reductions. It's been an enormous change getting rid of these people. And this demographic change went far beyond the just immigration issue. It's reshaping America. And thank God he's doing it, and thank God he's getting credit for it.
So more protesters. Keep coming out, protesters.
You know, as we prepare these weekly summaries for the radio show, I've been less and less likely to include stuff about the Ukraine war.
Yeah, I know.
And that's because there's a dirty little secret going on. Ukraine is winning the war. Russia is losing it.
How you figure that?
And first of all, maps of the world based on satellite photography have indicated a huge gain, not huge gain, but an important gain by Ukraine in the percentage of the land Ukraine owns. Russian casualties have now exceeded 1 million dead.
Wow.
1 million dead. And Rubio just said, so to this point, neither side has been willing to make concessions, particularly on the Russian side. We remain ready to play any role we can in the context of bringing a peace about, because we think the war in Ukraine, devastating war, has no military solution. It can only be solved through a diplomatic route, and that's been unfruitful. But he's wrong. The fact is that Ukraine is winning this war, which is why Putin is not anxious to go through negotiations.
Why? Well,
because Ukraine has changed its tactics in the war.
Uh-huh.
It no longer fights tank to tank. It fights drones.
Guys on the floor?
Yeah.
On the ground?
And drone attacks and very low-cost attacks, which create huge casualties. And the Russian army is not prepared to cope with
you
this.
said that Russia lost a solid 1 million people?
Yeah.
Soldiers? How many did Ukraine lose? Do you know the number?
No, but it's not nearly as large.
Really? Wow.
It's not nearly as large. And the point is that on the ground, Ukraine is defeating Russia. And Russia does not have the capacity to replace the battlefield losses that it's incurred. And it's so important to understand that. This war, which originally everybody assumed Ukraine would lose, that Russia would occupy it, and everybody thought it would take a matter of months.
So what do I...
Then settled into stalemate, and now the stalemate is gradually being pushed back by Ukraine. And Zelensky doesn't want a solution because Zelensky knows that he's winning the war. And he's going to continue to win this war. And it's going to result in huge changes in Russia, possibly the toppling of Putin, certainly the
I thought that would have happened already.
Certainly the end of Russia's imperialism.
The not very well-read army.
Yeah.
That's what I was calling from the beginning.
Originally he thought he could make it up by North Korean troops. And he sent them in, and they got screwed up.
How many of them?
I don't know.
We got to figure out all these numbers.
They were forced out. And now he's instituted conscription in Russia. He's drafting people, he's taking them off the street. He's destabilizing his regime. He's mortgaging everything to this war. And he's making no progress, zero progress. And the key thing is that the satellite photography from space shows that in terms of actual square mileage, Ukraine has gained in the last year and Russia has lost.
I did not see that. We got to look into that. Let's go to the phones anyway. How about we go to this? This is funny. This is your buddy Nadler. He wants to talk about Russ and White Plains. I don't know why I'm taking this one. Hey, Russ and White Plains.
Hey, Doug.
You know, Dick used to be good friends with him. And did you guys have an apartment together?
Yeah, we shared.
Oh,
he was my roommate.
God. All right, go, Russ. Sorry.
Well, I thought you guys went to high school together.
I knew him when he was thin.
And now he's thin again.
You looked really good on Newsmax, Dick, and that's really the second question I wanted to ask you about, you know, your appearance with Rita Cosby on Newsmax, and you emphasized it was more important to correct mail-in ballot fraud than voter ID. I wanted to ask you about that. But I wanted to, ask you about Jerry. Well, first of all, D-Day was Operation Overlord.
Right.
Not Overload. And, you had such a diverse career, Dick, since your government job. And Jerry's, what's he going to do? He can't go back to being night manager at the OTB on 72nd and Broadway.
No, he's...
Wait, was he really night manager? I bet he was.
No.
Yeah, he was.
It's Jerry's career is over, and
correct.
And good riddance.
Real quick, Dick. His political power is being eroded because if his chief of staff, Michael Lasher, loses, his Democratic Super Club. It wasn't like Riverside Democrats, which was clowns and jokers. I really enjoyed you there. Stanley, all the people there with you. But I'd like to know if you watched the debate, who's going to replace Jerry? Because this Kennedy kid, Schlossberg, looked real good to me. He said that Lasher was for stop and frisk, and Schlossberg renounced offensive weapons to Israel. He seems like a good guy. Now, Gates and Bannon are saying that the war on Iran was a foreign policy blunder. Dick, I'll be honest. I voted for Trump twice, but you build freedom by building socialism, and Mayor Mondami has that courage. Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you, Russ.
That courage?
Yeah.
The courage to lie and cheat?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right, Stanley in North Carolina. What you got, Stanley?
Hey, Stanley.
North Carolina.
Yeah, hi, my favorite show. Real quick, Republicans are always talking about how Puerto Rico is going to be a state and D.C. is going to be a state. If you look at a map, D.C.'s in Maryland, so why not make it part of Maryland and pay Puerto Rico's debt and say, adios, baby, you want to...
Why don't we just not do anything and leave it as it is, which I think is the best solution.
The
U.S. should pull the plug on the UN Relief Agency.
Oh, this is big. The federal government should put an end to the United Nations Relief and Work, that's UNRWA agency. It has long connived, right. It has long connived at Islamist terrorism against Israel and has, to put it mildly, long been an impediment to peace. In May 18th letter, Tom Cotton, Ted Cruz, and 23 of their Republican colleagues urged President Trump to take a decisive action to fully dismantle the UNRWA and eliminate it from the UN budget. The senators cited UNRWA's links to October 7th Hamas terrorist attack in Israel, in which Iranians-backed terrorists invaded the Jews' state and murdered 1,200 people. The massacre was the largest slaughter of Jewish civilians since the Holocaust. UN employees were among the perpetrators. Wow, this is crazy. They were also among those who kept some of the terrorists hostage. Wow. They were also themselves, and an Israeli investigation found that at least 12 UNRWA employees took part in the attack. The U.S. Agency for International Development, Office of Inspector General, has since identified additional current and former UNRWA workers tied to the assault or to the Hamas, which was...
This is an agency that was set up by the UN for the purpose of dealing with Palestinian refugees. And at first it was one of a number of places around the world that had this problem. And then gradually all the other refugees in all the other countries went away. After several generations, they settled into their new countries. Mm-hmm. They were absorbed by their new countries, but the Palestinians were not. And the UN agency became dedicated exclusively to the needs of the Palestinian refugees, who were refugees really by choice. They refused to resettle into their lands. They refused to be reabsorbed into the landscape, like water after a flood that wouldn't go down because it refused to be absorbed into the ground. Mm-hmm. And instead, the UNRWA, the UN Relief Agency, has become the epicenter of terrorism. And we need to get rid of it. We need to close it. We need to pull the plug on it. And its financing is almost entirely by the United States. And we just should stop. It's ridiculous that we are funding this. What is it, 80 years after the Civil War allegedly caused these refugees. This is total nonsense.
Just stop. Let's go to the phones again. Michael of Rockaway Beach. Hi, Michael.
Hey, guys. Good afternoon. This week, Trump and Basad questioned the free market mechanism of the stock market when it sold off after those employment numbers came out. I'm wondering if the oil market pricing is also manipulated or reacts in a knee-jerk fashion.
Of course.
When something happens in the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah, it does.
Of course.
It does. And bear in mind that you're dealing here with the oil market, with people who are buying and selling oil and are anxious to anticipate what the price will be so that they're not caught short-handed or with a surplus of oil on their hands.
And they all go forward. All the guys that are bringing the oil up, all the oil guys are in cahoots with them. Not even in cahoots. They just, I'm going up 10 cents, so I'm going to go up 11.
Yeah, and it takes a while for these trends to work out, and you can't treat them as accurate. They are fixed. They've always been fixed.
Right.
And they'll continue to be because they're based on projections as to what you think is likely to happen.
Thank you, Michael. We got to take a break, Dick, and when we get back.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. Trump is now dealing with the issue of who is financing illegal immigration.
This is a great
and he's saying that that what's going on is that when people send remittances home to their families, people who work in fields in the U.S., that money is being intercepted by organized crime, by the drug cartels.
I would say glommed.
And used to finance them.
Yeah, right.
And what he's done now is to order a new system set up for remittances so that it'll be done honestly, so that it can't be diverted to organized crime.
So he signed an executive order on the 19th, calling it one of the administration's most powerful tools against illegal immigration, cartel activity, and financial fraud. The order titled, Restoring Integrity to America's Financial System, directs Treasury and federal regulators to review banking, lending, and customer identification practices that the administration says have allowed illegal immigrants, money launderers, human traffickers, and other criminal actors to exploit American financial institutions. The executive order goes well beyond the messaging document. It directs Treasury Secretary Bessent to issue guidance identifying suspicious financial patterns tied to payroll tax evasion, labor trafficking, shell company activity, off-the-books wage payments, and the use of individual taxpayer identification numbers to obtain financial services without verified legal presence. Treasury is also directed to work with federal banking regulators on proposed changes to Bank Secrecy Act regulations that would strengthen consumers' due diligence requirements and give financial institutions broader authority to obtain additional information when evaluating fraud, money laundering, sanction evasion, and other illicit financial. It's a problem with this, Dick. It's not a problem. This is a good thing. We know some institutions that are real time. It happens immediately. Some of them, this is brand new. But the problem with getting people won't be sending their money back and forth because they're not going to want to put their information all over the place and who they are. So that's really not a problem. This is definitely going to stop a lot of cartels grabbing your money and, some thieves across the border.
Meantime, it's hard to believe that it's controversial that after he survived an assassination attempt of guys running into the White House Correspondents' Dinner and shooting guns,
Yeah.
wounding Secret Service agents and threatening the president. Somehow or other, the demand that we install a new ballroom, financed entirely by private money and donations, has become controversial. Monica Crowley, our friend, who is now the head of protocol at the U.S., said every modern president has complained about the fact that only two main rooms in the White House where you can do large-scale events is the East Room and the State Dining Room. Where we do plenty of events there, they can really only accommodate about 140 people.
Hard to believe.
Presidents who want to do large-scale events have to put up a tent in the backyard. Women walking in heels, it's raining on you, you're stuck in the mud, it's hot, you're trying to bring in air conditioning. The U.S. America should not have to conduct itself this way.
And there's no more men out there that put their jacket down over the puddle and lift a woman
Walter
over
Raleigh is quite gone.
I do. Not really, but I do. In the beginning of a date, I usually go, I open the door and then I do the thing and I go, I always say, don't get used to this. Mr. Trump has demolished the east wing of the White House to construct a 90,000 square foot ballroom that could accommodate nearly 1,000 people. The $400 million cost of the ballroom, which will be almost twice the size of the executive mansion, will be covered by private donations. White House officials have said the ballroom will include, this is great, a 6-story deep bunker, military hospital, command center, drone port, and other security features to withstand direct attack. This is so important. This isn't just a ballroom. Yeah. This is everything.
Absolutely.
This is for
and it's so needed. And for God's sakes, after they attacked the White House Correspondents' Dinner and actually shot people.
And somebody shot at the White House.
We need to get rid of the farming this out to hotels and have it in the White House.
And somebody shot some rounds at the White House the other day when we were there.
Yeah, that's right.
I think we were actually in Washington. I don't know. But so what's the matter with, first of all, if a Democrat comes in and asks for this, it'll get done.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I mean? They won't have a problem with it. Ridiculous. Hey, let's go to one more caller, right, Dick? Shannon from Belmore, New York. Hi, Shannon. Hi, Shannon. Are you there? Shannon from...
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Okay, good. With the influx of Islamic Muslims coming into this country, flooding in during the Biden administration and taking over politics and businesses and wanting to change our way of life, I think ICE should start going into these mosques and seeing how many of these people are legal.
I agree, but it'll happen eventually, not now.
We can get up to that.
We're going to get to it.
Let's start with those people who've already been arrested
for
being here illegally and sitting in jails throughout the country and get them thrown out of the country.
Thank you, Shannon, but you're right. And I think eventually that might just happen, but, one thing at a time. All right, Dick, what's the next?
A leading conservative health policy group is warning that millions of Americans may be improperly enrolled in Obamacare, potentially costing taxpayers as much as $25 billion a year.
Wow.
A new report, the Paragon Health Institute, led by former Trump economic advisor Brian Blasey, estimated that 6.2 million people enrolled through Affordable Care Act exchanges in 2025 may not be eligible for the authorized coverage they've received.
Not so affordable.
That figure represents roughly a quarter of all Obamacare exchange enrollees. The analysis comes as the Trump administration intensifies efforts to get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse in federal programs. Paragon's analysis, based on federal enrollment and U.S. Census Bureau data, argues that the number of Americans receiving ACA, Obamacare coverage, far exceeds the number who appear eligible based on reported income levels.
Wow.
Obamacare enrollment over the past 5 years has been inflated by improper and phantom enrollees, and these enrollees are expensive to the taxpayer. In another story, job openings in the U.S. have soared to 7.6 million jobs. This is, again, the Trump economy, particularly because of the tax cuts that he passed. The number of open jobs in the U.S. jumped to 7.6 million in April, while layoffs declined, evidence of how demand for workers has intensified. At the end of April, there were just over 7.6 million open positions, up from about 6.9 million at the end of March in 1 month, according to the Labor Department, the largest number of job vacancies in 2 years. The manufacturing sector saw openings rise to 500,000, up 24,000 from the previous month, and 100,000 higher than a year ago. Openings in the economically sensitive professional and business services sector rose from 1 million to 1.7 million, and the federal government saw job vacancies climb from 78,000 to over 95,000. State and federal government vacancies rose slightly, and openings in healthcare and social assistance climbed by 100,000.
Are the people taking this job and shoving it? Are they taking the jobs?
Yeah, well, they are taking the job.
There's openings.
But there's plenty of slack in the economy. Plenty of unemployed people can get jobs.
That's my point. Are people taking them? We got to look at that number in a couple of weeks.
Now, there is a new poll out. You may remember that Trump can't run for re-election. And
really?
There's a new poll that shows that Vance has a virtual lock on the 28th presidential primary. Vance has 47% support, down from 53% in February. But only Marco Rubio, who has 18% support, who had a 3-point jump, shows any kind of political strength. So Vance is now leading Rubio by 47 to 18.
Yeah, but you got a couple of years, Dick.
You do.
You know.
But this shows it'll be so hard for Rubio to break that.
Then you got DeSantis, who will no longer be governor in the Sunshine State due to his term
So there have
limits.
been other polls that have shown the race tighter. But basically it still is no race. It's exactly a walk by Vance. And with Trump winning the election for Congress, overwhelmingly, I think it's only going to get easier.
I agree with that. Plus, you know, the more he does for the country, Trump, that is, the more whoever he asks, and that's his vice president, the better he's going to do, Vance, without a doubt. So, 3 cheers for Trump's crackdown on waste and fraud. You want to take that, Dick? I'll take it. We know that the fraud, erroneous payments, and outright theft from federal grant programs are an epidemic. The Trump administration issued the strictest ever proposed rules for hundreds of federal grant-making programs, doling out hundreds of billions of dollars each year. Here's some of the favorite clampdowns. Curtail federal grants that are unaligned with presidential executive orders and policies. 2, mandate that evidence of fraud must be provided. A mandate that evidence of fraud must be provided to the U.S. Attorney for D.C. so the criminals can be prosecuted. 3, prohibit grants that push disparate impact liability theories.
Disparate impact liability theories, discriminatory event services, diversity, equity, exclusion. Wipe out green new scam grant requirements. Forbid grants for voter registration campaigns, issue advocacy, or political activities. Impose requirements on NGOs, not government organizations, to provide their IRS code qualifications. Make agencies identify what type of scientific research they plan to fund. Make grantees subject to for-profit rules if a grantee receives 90% or more of its funding from grants. These are all steps that have actually taken place and have reduced federal spending and, more importantly, reduced federal employment to the lowest level since the 1960s.
And they're making it hard for people of fraud, that's what I'm going to call them, right, to go forward. Like, a lot of people just aren't going to, they're going to get a different job, you know what I mean, than trying to hack the system because they're going to get caught. That's part of it. Where you going, Dick?
Healthcare costs shouldn't eclipse the cost of owning a home. But for millions of Americans, that's exactly what's happening. The numbers don't lie. The average American family now pays over $2,200 a month for health insurance. Surprisingly, that's more than the average mortgage payment of $2,000. So the average family is paying more for health insurance than they are for their home mortgage. Unbelievable.
Wow. Let's go to the phone. Let's take Lee in Pennsylvania. Hey, Lee in Pennsylvania.
Hi, how are you guys?
Good.
I've got some questions. Really comes from a couple of gripes of mine. One has to do with why aren't we seeing any of the corrupt politicians or like people like Hunter Biden actually serve sentences for the crimes that they found to be committed?
Well, Hunter Biden got pardoned by Joe Biden before he left office. And he got pardoned not just for stuff that he had done, but stuff that might be found to have done.
Well, does the pardon...
He gets a get-out-of-jail-free card for the rest of his life.
A question for you. Does that pardon mean that you can't even take him in and depose him?
If Hunter Biden murders somebody tomorrow, he's pardoned.
How could he... Well, I thought you pardoned from past. You pardoned future?
Not the Biden pardon. The Biden pardon that he gave his son was for future stuff as well. And you don't see that in part because of the Biden. The one chance we do have is that I think there's a fair chance that James Comey, the former head of the CIA, is going to be indicted and convicted.
Right.
But other than that, you're just not seeing it. The system is protecting itself. It's the answer to your question.
Wow, that's friggin' horrible, I got to tell you. How about David from Elmont, New York? Hey, David. Hello, David. You there? Hello?
Okay.
All right, we got him. What's up, Dave? All right, you're out. Sorry about that. Well, we're ready to take a break. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, we'll try to get David on the line. No, we're not.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. Countries in South America have holding elections this year, and two countries, one country in particular, has moved sharply from left-wing governments to right-wing governments.
And I know a couple of guys in this room that have something to do with it.
Yeah.
I don't know their names, but one is Dick Morris.
That's Colombia, which had a left-wing government by a guy named Petro. In fact, he called on troops, American soldiers, to disregard their orders from the president and to try to assassinate Trump.
Oh, my God.
And his party just lost the election. And the guy who's likely going to win is Alberto de la Espriella, who got 43% of the vote. Cepeda Castro, the communist, got 40%, but de la Espriella is going to win that.
And he's got a beautiful wife. I mean, supermodel-looking wife. I had to say that. We met her in Miami.
In the last few years, Argentina, Ecuador, Bolivia, Honduras, Chile, Costa Rica, and now Colombia have moved from the left to the right. That's for the seven countries that used to be communist and basically have now returned to free market economics. One of the big effects of Trump.
No, the effects of Dick Morris are like 90% of this, because about 2 years ago, we had some things going on in South America, and I was going to say Dick called the boss and said, put me on the ground to get people elected, and give me a liaison between you, me, and South America. And Trump's like, I don't really care about that. And then all of a sudden he goes, you know what, Dick, I'm going to do that. Who do you got? And Dick would call him up and say, here's a guy. He goes, you like the guy? Okay, I'll endorse whatever. He didn't know he said he would endorse. He never says I'll endorse him. He goes, "You like the guy, Dick?" And Dick says, "Sure, Mr. President, this guy's good." He goes, "All right, I'll think about it." And then within a day or 2 or 3, boom.
Yeah.
So this has everything to do with Dick Morris, South America. And when we go down there, I have to say, like kings, they loved him. And they want to hate you, too. You're going to get assassinated.
Depends on what side they're on.
Right. or you're going to get a steak dinner. Everything's steak. And they all go out at 10 o'clock at night to eat. I go, what are you kidding me? I'm sleeping by 10. All right, go, Dick. I'm sorry. I had to go there.
There's been a real effort to index the capital gains tax for inflation. And this is something that really needs to happen. The capital gains tax in the U.S. goes up, and there's no indexing for inflation. They moan that it would cost the government too much revenue and increase the deficit. But the fact is that whenever you raise the capital gains tax and you increase the number of people who have capital gains, you really shrink the deficit enormously. And that obviously is the case now.
I think we should take another call, Dick. What do you think?
Okay.
Joe from Brookhaven. Hey, Joe.
Hey, gentlemen. How are you?
Good.
Thank you for taking my call. I'm going back to something earlier about the American kids. It's been 40 years they've been pushed aside for summer jobs and when they get home from school from 15 to 19 in favor of illegal immigrants. So they put in applications and they just put in, and these companies, McDonald's, Wendy's, fast food, retail, contractors, they hire grown illegal immigrants. I happen to know it personally from Long Island. There's over 400,000 illegal workers out of in Nassau and Suffolk out of 3 million population. And ICE, God bless them. I love them. And they need to go after the companies that are hiring these illegals. We have laws against it, and they do nothing. And I've been doing this 47 years from the Gold Coast, Nassau, all the way to Montauk. And I've seen it over the course. I'm a contractor. I've seen it in contracting. I've seen it in retail.
Yeah, you're right. And then on top of that, they're raising the minimum wage, which makes it worthwhile for these companies to hire people off the books.
Yeah, but I'm surprised that you say McDonald's and some of the big corporations getting illegals. That could be tracked pretty easily.
Yeah.
I personally know 30 years ago, Wendy's, illegal worker, and she's still there.
Wow, it's unusual. All right, thanks, Joe. I really appreciate it. We got to take a quick break, and we'll be back quickly.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. You know, we are working on stopping ballot fraud. And one of the big things that goes on is the push for photo IDs. But what happens when your vote is mailed in? How can you make sure that it's not fraudulent? How can you make sure that the vote is really a voter? Well, Trump is now demanding changing the rules of the post office, one of the key things that he can control unilaterally.
Sure.
And brilliantly, he's now playing defense, proposing sweeping new rules that would require states to submit voter names, addresses, and unique ballot barcodes for federal elections to give the federal government real teeth to verify that mail-in ballots are going to and coming back from actual voters. There's been massive cheating going on, and we're going to take federal data. We're going to ensure that each state's election officials are provided with a comprehensive view of who is eligible in their jurisdictions, allowing them to properly verify that everybody voting in their elections is legally able to do so. Trump ordered the Postmaster General and the U.S. Postal Service to take bold new measures to verify that ballots are being sent to people who are actually eligible to vote, and then that the ballots are being returned or properly returned by eligible voters only. States would be required to submit voter lists tied to unique barcodes on every outbound and return ballot envelope. The post office would compare ballots sent against ballots returned and flag discrepancies for further investigation. The kind of basic chain of custody tracking that exists for virtually every other sensitive document in America. The administration is not waiting on Congress to act, but Trump directed the post office to build the system through federal rulemaking with a 30-day comment period. There'll be lawsuits, but it looks like Trump has finally found a way to really crack down on illegal voting.
But, you know, I have to say, about a year ago, maybe a little more, we were getting on a plane, back and forth, and I think you didn't have your boarding pass, you dropped, you couldn't find it, and they just did your name, and they know, oh, no, you're good, so they knew you didn't need the pass. Plus, with the scan code, I scanned my thing, and I didn't have and I said to the lady, so anyone could get on the plane as me? No. Once you're on, that's it. So somebody can have the boarding pass, my boarding pass that I lost.
But we don't use anything like that system on mail-in voting.
But that's what I'm saying. They have it, and it's that exact that you can't duplicate it. How about we go to Stu in Brooklyn? D-Day message. Hey, Stu, make it quick because we're going to get off in a second.
All right. Here's the takeout from D-Day. Until the Higgins boats hit the beach in Normandy, the Wehrmacht High Command had been convinced by a deception plan that the real invasion was going to be at Calais.
Right.
So units like the 1st SS Armored Division weren't there, which saved thousands of lives. Right. Fast forward. I think Donald Trump is running a brilliant deception plan right now to buy time for whatever people we have. Bringing weapons over to Iran to make sure we get the right people back into control of the government.
Yeah. Good point.
Thank you,
Good
Stu.
point. Good history.
Point. Hey, Dick, I heard bears aren't indigenous to Indiana, right?
No.
But I heard there was a sighting.
The Chicago Bears are being thrown out of Chicago. The Chicago Bears will soon have a rather awkward problem. They're one of the world's famous football teams. But increasingly, the Chicago Bears are not going to play in Chicago. In fact, they won't even play in Illinois. The franchise announced Friday that it's moving forward with plans to build a new stadium in Hammond, Indiana, just across the state line from Chicago. The team released a statement from Chairman George H. McCaskey, President, and CEO Ken Warren explaining the decision to leave the city and leave the state. Yesterday, the Chicago Bears Board of Directors met and voted to advance our stadium development project in Hammond, Indiana, with the exact site to be selected. We believe the world-class stadium project in Hammond will transform the region, connecting northwest Indiana to the south side of Chicago. The Bears just informed Illinois that they're going to be taking one of the most recognizable institutions to a red state that can now collect money from multiple NFL franchise. That's a more stunning development than usual for Democratic Governor J.P. Pritzker, the far-left Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, and the political leaders who spent years fumbling the negotiations to get a deal done for sports fans and a team that is synonymous with the Windy City.
We got a little something going on with Kristen Welker. Go.
Your elections in this country, we're like a third world country. Your elections are crooked, and you're crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked. It's 4 days.
Are doing well
in California. No, they're not. They're dropping fast because it's a rigged election. Let me tell you, it's 4 days. And they aren't even close to coming up with it.
That's how they count.
You know why they're doing that? Because they're cheating on the election.
Do you have evidence to support
all I have to do is look.
Listen, Trump stormed out of that press conference thing, whatever it was, the interview. Unbelievable. Dick, this guy doesn't take any crap from these people.
Right.
She went on and on.
Well, isn't that great? The Chicago Bears are no longer Chicago. The Indiana Bears.
No, they got to still call them Chicago, just like they call New York Jets and New York Giants. They can still call them Chicago.
Right.
You believe that, though? The interviewer with Donald Trump, and was that an interview or that was a press conference? Or we were told to put that on real fast. But hey, listen, they could still be called Chicago. New Jersey Jets. I hated that. New Jersey. I refused to like them after that. If they would have said New Jersey Jets, I would have said, okay, they're my team.
Well, same thing, the Boston Patriots.
Yeah, right.
Became the New England Patriots.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's a little different. Anyway, it was an honor, Dick Morris, and thank you, Roxana. Let's go.
Well, this was fun.
Where are we going for lunch?
Thanks for listening to The Dick Morris Show. You can hear The Dick Morris Show Sundays at noon. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
One summer moment can change a child's life. Through Toys for Tots Give and Go initiative, your support provides books, games, toys, and outdoor adventures that spark curiosity, creativity, and a love of nature. Whether it's fishing, learning a new sport, reading under a tree, or playing with friends, these moments build confidence and lifelong memories. For too many children, those moments never come. You can help change that this summer. Visit toysfortots.org. Toys for Tots, delivering hope beyond the holidays.